The exam is not only about your language ability, it's also about strategies. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and I have some great news to share with you guys. I passed DELE C1 exam. Yay! The result came out last week when I was still traveling, and here is my score. I would say I didn't pass with flying colors, but I'm pretty satisfied with it, except for the writing part. I really think I deserve more. But that's what I think. Maybe the examiners think differently. So today I want to share with you guys how I prepared for DELE C1 exam by myself. 90% by myself, I would say, because I was still taking Spanish classes online back then. So the teacher did help correct my writing a little bit. But other than that, I prepared for the exam pretty much by myself, and I've got a lot to share. If you are also preparing for DELE C1, I've outlined everything. So we'll be covering the books that I used, tips and tricks, how I prepared for writing and speaking, and what it was really like on the exam day. So without further ado, let's get started. First thing first, these two books are the books that I used to prepare for DELE. I mainly used these two books. The classic Preparación al DELE, and this one is Las Claves de DELE C1. I signed up for the exam in January. My plan was to really strengthen my Spanish knowledge in the first 3 to 4 months, and in the last 2 months or so I would start doing these two books with mock exams. But it turned out that I just 1 month into preparing for DELE with the grammar books, with the vocabulary books, I just felt so burned out that I just gave up. I guess I'm just not cut out for it. But if you are interested, these two books are actually pretty good. This one is the Gramática de Uso. I actually only used B1 to B2, and I did 60 or something units. Then I used this one because I did see people recommending this book, Uso Interactivo del Vocabulario. So when I really learned the first 2 units of this book, what a shame, I also wrote down all the words there. But as I said, this is just not the best way for me to learn vocabulary and language in general, so I just gave up. Back to the book, I'm gonna mainly introduce these two books. There are 6 mock exams in this book. I finished 4 of them. So the good thing about this book is that it comes with a vocabulary list in front of each unit, so you can learn the vocabulary first, and then these vocabularies may appear somewhere either in the reading or in the listening. So it did help a little bit if you study the vocabulary first, but as I said, I'm not this kind of person, so I only study the vocabulary of the first 2 units. But except for that, I do think the exercises in this book are way too easy for DELE, personal opinion. So compared with this one, the mock exams in this book are a lot harder than this one. I don't know if other people feel the same, but honestly, I do think that the real exam is only harder than this one, at least the one that I had. So if you only use this book to prepare for DELE, you are probably gonna be very surprised when you see the real thing. But if you use this book as well, you are gonna be less surprised. And as you guys probably know, there is another book called El Cronómetro, but I didn't really buy that book because I was like, let me just finish these 2 first. And then this one, I really like this book. So this book consists of 2 parts. It actually has 5 units for you to learn. And at the end of the book, there are 5 mock exams. As you guys can see, it comes with a lot of images. You get to learn the vocabulary in a more fun way. And then it has text. It also has listening practice. It's really it's got everything. Well, I did finish these parts. Look at these pills. They make the words a lot less boring. And then after each unit, they would introduce 1 small section of the exam. For example, after unit 1, they have a reading for you. So this reading is a type of reading that you would encounter in the real exam. This is normally the first reading test. And then after that, there is listening practice. And I really like the part of speaking and writing because it comes with an example of writing, and it comes with example of speaking. So you get to learn the structure of writing and speaking from this book because it gives you a really good idea of how you should start your speech, how you should end your speech. And as I said, it has 5 mock exams at the end of the book. So that's the introduction of the books. My personal opinion is that, if you can buy 2, well, buy 2 books, but if you are on a budget, I would definitely go with this one instead of this one because you're gonna learn a lot more. Even if you are not gonna take C1 exam, I still think this book is worth it. But no matter what, you're definitely gonna get at least one book with mock exams because it's very, very important for you to understand the structure of the exam. You need to know what types of questions there are in the reading, the listening, writing, and everything. And the second reason why you should definitely do mock exams is because you need to learn how to control the time. You only have 90 minutes to finish 5 tasks in the reading, so you need to learn through all these exercises how you would assign time to each task of the reading. For example, this one, to insert fragments into the text, like normally this part takes a lot more time than other parts, so I will normally just leave this part to the last. Anyway, everyone has their own way to deal with this. I wouldn't really recommend anything because you need to find the best way that suits you. All I could recommend is to do mock exams and figure out the best way for you. And the third reason that you should do all these mock exams is because you need to learn from your mistakes. I think this is very important, that after each mock exam, you really look back and study. For me, I would just write down why I got this one wrong. Is it because of vocabulary? Is it because I misunderstood something? Is it because I didn't read carefully? And then you learn the pattern of your mistake, so you have a better chance to avoid making the same mistakes in the exam, if that makes sense. So make sure you practice enough with mock exams. So in the next part, I want to talk about how I practice speaking and writing. So let's talk about speaking first. Bear in mind, I'm only sharing how I prepared for the speaking test of DELE C1, not how I improved my speaking skills, like in general. Okay, the first thing that you need to prepare for the speaking test is definitely vocabulary. There are primarily 4 parts, I want to say. Number 1 is to find topics online. There are all kinds of videos sharing what kind of topic would appear in the exam. For example, environmental issues, clean energy, social media. So you want to find these like 4 to 5 topics that might appear, and you want to prepare your own vocabulary list in these categories. So the way I did it is to just read articles online and write down vocabularies or structures or good expressions in this category. But to be honest, I didn't do all of them. I only prepared for environment and social media because I think these were really common. And I think even if I got other questions like clean energy, I can still borrow the words from the environment category. And the second part of vocabulary that I prepared is conectores, the connecting words. So you want to prepare vocabulary that indicate like causes, result, emphasis, addition, contrast, comparison. I had this section called conectores. So this part are all the conectores, all the connecting words that I could use to indicate the reason for something. Everybody knows por qué, but other than por qué, you should also know like debido a, dado que, puesto que, visto que, a causa de que. And of course, everybody knows para qué, but in addition, you should also prepare de modo que, con el fin de que, con vistas a que, con la finalidad de. You are gonna use these conectores, these connecting words a lot, both in writing and in speaking, and you don't want to sound repetitive because that would make the examiner think that you don't have what it takes to be C1. You don't have the vocabulary. So you want to prepare a list of that, and you want to practice these words when you practice speaking and writing, which I'm going to talk about soon. I also prepared the synonyms of common words that you might use a lot in speaking or in writing. For example, pedir, it's a super common word, but you don't want to use pedir all the time. You want to also put solicitar, exigir, demandar, reclamar, and for example, to cause something. Except for causar, you want to have ocasionar, provocar, originar, producir, motivar. I don't think you need to memorize all the synonyms, but I think in each category at least 3 words, because as I said, you don't want to sound repetitive. Make sure that you also prepare some sentence structures. So vocabulary is important, but it's equally important to prepare the opening and the ending of your little speech. For opening, you can say no cabe duda de que blah blah blah, or no se puede negar de que blah blah blah, or para empezar, antes que nada. You need to have a list of opening and ending and the connecting words. Like practice so that when you are in an exam, you don't need to brainstorm these words, you should have them in your mind because that saves time. And then the last part of preparation that I made for vocabulary is to prepare some fancy words. And by fancy words, I mean words that are a little bit advanced that you can use to show off. I know like in real life, this doesn't matter. And I know all these strategies might sound a little bit rigid, like just for the exam, but the exam is not only about your language ability, it's also about strategy. So if you have this strategy, you're gonna save a lot of effort and get the best result out of what you've got. So I had like a small list of fancy words, maybe 10 to 20 words, that's enough for both speaking and writing. You wanna put into use all these nice words that you prepared. You need to force yourself to use the words that you prepared, because only in that way does this preparation make sense. Because if you don't know how to use these vocabularies, what's the point of preparing them, right? So we're done with the vocabulary here, and now I want to talk about how I practiced like really for the speaking test. For the record, I did have Spanish classes every day, which sort of maintained my Spanish level, and I did get to practice speaking every day, which is also very important. Okay, so there are two tasks in the speaking part. You could use the book that you have. So the first speaking task is to read an article. You have 20 minutes to read the article, and after that you are supposed to give a resume, and then you are supposed to answer some questions. And the second part of the speaking task, in my opinion, I don't think it's that hard. You just choose the best option. So this guy wants to buy an apartment. He has 2 kids. He loves nature. So which one of these 4 apartments do you think is gonna work the best for him? That kind of thing. So we're gonna focus on the first task. The way that I practice it is to record myself. So I will just find an article here, and then I will put on the timer on my phone. I give myself 20 minutes. I read the article, and while reading it, I will just take notes. After that comes the most painful part, is to record yourself. That's just so freaking awkward. It is very, very painful to listen to myself summarizing an article, especially for the first 3 recordings. I mean, the first 3 recordings were like, shit. But you need to shame yourself first to get better. So why is it important to record yourself? Because when you watch yourself, you are standing at the viewer point of view, and when you hear things like and also the tone of your speaking, so it makes a whole world of a difference. If you talk like, well, in this article it mainly says things about clean energy, compared with, well, in this article it talks about clean energy. So there are 3 parts in this article. You know, when you turn on that confident mode, you are gonna sound more confident, even if you are not at all. But it's very important to give yourself that inner boost, because when I listen to myself, I heard a big difference depending on the tone of speaking. While suffering from watching these recordings, I learned what is the best tone to talk. What are some of the things that I should get rid of, like or well or boys, and you are gonna gradually get the hang of how to sound more fluently. You need to pace your talking speed so that it's comfortable for the examiner or any other human being to hear. You are not gonna be able to learn that if you don't listen to yourself. So even if you have somebody to practice speaking with, my advice is to just record yourself. And I did see an improvement ever since the 4th recording, and I learned what is the best way to take notes while reading the article. And then let's talk about writing. So as speaking, the first thing that you need to do to prepare for writing is, of course, the vocabulary, which sort of like overlaps with what you should do with speaking. So I'm not gonna spend more time on that anymore, just the same as how you prepare for speaking. So as you guys know, there were 2 parts of writing. That one is to listen to a conference, can be a lecture, a seminar, and then you take notes while listening to the audio. After that, you are supposed to write a resume of what you've just heard. And the second tarea is normally carta de reclamación, letter of complaint, but there are times that they didn't have that. So you want to be prepared for that as well. So let's talk about the first task. It's utterly important that you practice with what you have in these mock exams. Just listen to the audio, take notes. You need to learn what's the best way to take notes and how to organize the information that you have on paper. And of course, there are like structures that you can prepare for the resumen part. The thing is, I did this part so well in the practice. Even my Spanish teacher said like my writing is really good, but as you guys can see, I only got 15 for writing, and that's because the first tarea of writing that I got on the exam day was quite different than what I had practiced before. So as I said, normally they had lectures, seminars, conference kind of stuff. What I got on the exam day is also a conference, but that guy was like talking about how he learned cooking in Paris and then he went back to Peru. Anyway, so it's just not easy to organize what he said to like first of all, second, third. So it sort of like caught me off guard. Main issue isn't that I didn't have enough vocabulary to write a piece that I didn't have a nice structure for. The main issue is the time issue, because like when I did writing practice, my major pain point is that I couldn't finish writing within 80 minutes. It was not like a TOEFL exam, you just like type everything out on the computer. This one you need to like handwrite everything, which means that you need to have a pretty neat handwriting for the examiners to read. So you need to really draft everything out on a piece of paper, and then you need to copy what you've written nicely on exam paper, which takes a lot of time. So I was like, oh my god, what should I do? It definitely took more time for me to think how to write it, and in the end, like I think my handwriting was pretty awful on the exam day, and I really didn't do that part well, I gotta say. But that doesn't undermine the importance of preparing for all these structures that you can use in the resumen part. And then of course, equally important is to prepare the structure, like especially the opening and the ending of the letter of complaint, carta de reclamación. You can find a lot of examples of letter of complaint, and you want to pick what you like from each example and make your own dish. In the speaking part I mentioned, but in my opinion, I think it's very important that you record yourself and you listen to yourself. But for writing, I do think it's necessary that you find a teacher to correct your answer for you. It doesn't matter if it's a Spanish native speaker, it's a Spanish teacher, a friend who speaks really good Spanish. The reason why I think it's important is because you don't want to reinforce the wrong idea in your mind, because you are not 100% sure that what you've written is correct in grammar and also sound natural. So you want to find somebody who can correct the mistakes that you make during the writing practice. So gradually you learn, okay, this structure works the best, this I'm gonna use this in the exam. Because if you prepare at all for some structure or vocabulary that you're gonna use exam, you want to prepare something right? So definitely find a teacher to correct like at least 2 to 3 pieces of yours. That wraps up everything that I want to talk about the preparation of the DELE exam. And coming up in the next part, I want to share my real experience on exam day, which was not quite as I thought